Thank you for joining us on this transatlantic cruise aboard the Celebrity Apex. On this cruise, we left out of Southampton in the UK before heading down to Vigo in Spain and Porto in Portugal, and then heading out across the Atlantic, stopping in Ponta Delgado in the Azores before 4 long days at sea all the way over to Bermuda, where we just missed a hurricane, before our last 2 days at sea before getting off the ship in Port Canaveral. On our journey over, we flew into Southampton's airport and took a cab down to the Harbor Hotel down in Southampton. It's actually a very nice place. And then the next morning, we were very lucky, since it was pouring, to be inside the Queen Elizabeth II terminal, since it is a fully covered terminal inside. And on this particular departure day, we got to go down and go do a spa tour, because we had decided to pay for a thermal spa pass since there were so many days at sea, and we actually got it at a little bit of a discount buying it ahead of time. So we got to come in here and take a look at all of the different things that you can do in the thermal spa. There's the nice warm beds. They have a nice little salt room here, is what you would call it. Please forgive me if I'm not up on all this, but I don't do the spas a lot. There's a couple of different mist rooms, saunas there of some sort, or steam rooms, I guess is what you'd call it. They do have these experience showers with different kinds of sprays and either warm or cold water. There's something called a crystallarium, which is just a nice, warm, relaxing place to hang out. And then they do have a true, really warm infrared sauna that has a really beautiful view out the front of the ship. And they do also have the front area here that you can go hang out in when it's not pouring in Southampton on the day of your departure. So that evening we took off to dinner and then headed off across the Bay of Biscay. And unfortunately, this was probably some of the roughest seas we'd been in, but this is the North Atlantic in October, so it can get a little bit rough and windy here, but that's all right. We ended up heading off to see the cruise director and the captain do their introductions before that evening's show.
Surely will remember, and tonight she is paying tribute to the phenomenal Aretha Franklin. So please give it up for Cece Tenille!
Unfortunately, this is one of those shows we weren't allowed to record. But our next stop was in Vigo, Spain, and it was the first time we were ever in Vigo, and we could definitely record everything we did here. So on our day that we had here, we ended up booking a sightseeing tour through Vigo and through some different areas that this particular part of northern Spain offers. It was different than what we had been through in the other ports that we've been to in Spain, like in Barcelona or Valencia or other places like that. It is very lush and green up here. It's right out on the coast. Lots of these just beautiful little boat harbors. And we ended up going out on this tour. This tour took us up to something called Bayona Fort, and just a really just old fort that we could walk around and get a look at all the harbors from the top of the fort and see all the different areas around this particular part of Spain. It's just a really interesting little walk to go through, and I'll kind of let you go through some of this area here. Its bay is just picturesque and huge up here in Vigo. It's the borders and the areas of it are just absolutely picturesque. They still kept some of their old cannons hanging around, obviously, and then as you go all the way around this, you will end up seeing a lot of the coastline, just all of the big fort walls, and unfortunately some of the rainy weather, but this was still, even on a drizzly day like this, an absolutely beautiful walk around this fort. Now, hopefully, as we're going through this walking tour of the fort here, that it is providing something helpful or entertaining or useful to you, or it's something that you enjoy. And if it is, please don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe. It's really helpful for the channel and does help us keep making these videos. We ended up jumping back on the bus and heading back towards the port in Vigo, but they ended up taking us to another location where we could get a really beautiful lookout down over the water and out into the port town of Vigo. This is Fortaleza de Castro. Sorry if I pronounced that completely wrong, but it is just a really old fort that they had, looking down on through the top of the bay here and out into the port area. Beautiful views, and it was really nice because the sun ended up coming out while we were able to tour around here for a little bit. We got a little bit of a break from the weather that was rolling through, and it ended up making it just this absolutely beautiful walking tour through this fort here. Sorry, a lot of this stuff is in Spanish. Forgive me. I don't speak too much Spanish, and certainly not enough to translate that. But yeah, Fortaleza de Castro is what the location is called, and it just gives you this really great view all the way down onto even where the cruise ships come in throughout the bay here in Vigo. So after that, we ended up returning back to the ship, and it ended up raining on us again as we came back down, so the weather held out long enough for us to get a really nice tour in up there before getting back onto the ship and heading off to this xylosynth performance, which was actually really incredible by David Meyer. If you get a chance, go see it, because we were not allowed to record it.
But tonight we are bringing you something very, very different. Let me tell you that. Please welcome to the stage the unique musical madman, David Meyer!
The very next morning, we made a quick trip down across the border into Porto, Portugal. This is the first time we've ever been in the country of Portugal, and it really did not disappoint. The weather was a little rainy, but it was an absolutely impressive port terminal that they'd had here. This whole thing was all these hexagon tiles throughout the whole area. We did pick on the photographer there for just a little bit, but we ended up doing a tour throughout Porto here. It was a bus tour that took us into the city where we could do a bunch of walking around on a lot of the different sites that they have here. It was just our way of getting introduced to a country that we'd never been to. It was the easiest way to do it, was just grab a quick little sightseeing tour off the ship. And here in Porto, they have kind of this really nice mix of architecture and old and new. It's a nice little walking area that you can visit. It has these coffee shops and shopping areas that you can kind of walk through here. The coffee was excellent, and then we were wondering what this just line was all about, but it ended up being a bookstore that looks like it comes right out of Harry Potter, so it ends up being a really popular little destination spot for people to go visit and go see, and it's obviously lives up to its name. The bus took us just here in this area where we could get a look at the statues and the older buildings and some of the architecture that they had before we ended up leaving this area and doing a bit more sightseeing through the town on the bus. They dropped us off over here at this old cathedral that had a beautiful view looking out over the city, and it ended up being a nice place for us to kind of sit down and relax, listen to a little bit of street music there, and kind of take in the city. After we visited this area and just did a bunch of walking around, we ended up walking to another little part of the city here that we'll get to in a bit. It ended up where we could choose to take the bus to the opposite side of the river and the bay here, or we could do a walk across the bridge, and the meeting point was just right on the other side of the bridge. We chose to do the walk because we wanted to get in some sightseeing not on the bus. So it actually worked out really well. This was a beautiful little walk across this bridge, and it ended up making for some really nice photography and video that we could get of the region here in Porto. It's just absolutely breathtaking. The rivers here, the river that comes in here is beautiful. I couldn't take a chance to miss the cars that go up and down to the river there and up the hills up above. Then we walked up to a lookout here that was above the city. Give you a little bit more of a look from a really high vantage point of the bridge that we came across and where we had just been just a few minutes before, taking a lot more photos. The city of Porto is absolutely beautiful. So if you ever get a chance, come visit Porto. It's amazing when you just get a few hours to spend here on a quick tour. So after that, we ended up heading back to the ship and give you a little better idea of what that terminal looks like there, where you can come into on the port in Porto. And these are some really brave windsurfers out here, but I can't imagine. That water must have been just really cold for them to go out, but it was a really windy day and probably excellent. And then that evening we went off to the performance of Caravan in the club.
Because this is our house, and in our house we play by our rules, and our house is open to everyone. So come with me, and you'll be a world of pure imagination.
I met him out there on a Friday night. He really had me working up and at the time. He had tattoos up and down his arms. There's nothing more dangerous than a boy with charm. He's a one butter and hot. When he kissed my mouth, it really hit the spot. He had lips like sugar cane. Good things come for boys who wait.
Tossing and chains, swinging out of high.
Candy man.
Through him, oh, she offers me protection, a lot of love and affection, whether I'm right or wrong. And if you said this life ain't good enough, I would give my word to lift you up. I could change my life to better suit your mood. 'Cause it's so smooth. It's just like the ocean under the moon, same as the emotion that I get from you. You got that kind of love that makes so true, yeah.
Got me feeling like ooh. And then I had to tell her I had to go. Oh na 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 na.
Just like the ocean under the moon, same as the emotion that I get from you. You got that kind of love that makes so true, yeah. Give me your heart, make it real, or else forget about it.
After leaving Porto, we had a couple of relaxing days at sea where we got to just kind of hang out. We ended up doing a couple of different things on those days. Besides relaxing out on deck, we ended up going to this 80s party that they had in the club. This was just a fun way to spend one of the evenings before heading off to the ever popular performance of Crystallize. After spending 2 days at sea, we ended up to our first ever visit into Ponta Delgado in the Azores. This is basically Portuguese controlled. They kind of go by the Portuguese constitution, but they are their own independent state. They do have their own self-governing body, so it's actually a very beautiful, well-run part of Portugal, I guess you would say, in the Azores. It's a wonderful port here. We ended up taking a tour through the cruise line up to Ribeira Grande, which is one of the smaller towns that's up in the hills outside of Ponta Delgado, and then up into the mountains to Fire Lake before heading back to the city of Ponta Delgado and the port area and visiting a pineapple farm that they have here, which is kind of interesting. I wouldn't have actually thought they could grow pineapples, but as we get going a little later, you'll see how they do it. The town here of Ribeira Grande, and I hope I'm saying that right, but I may not be, is beautiful. It's a picturesque town up in the hills here. They have this stream that runs through the town. They have just a bunch of old architecture that has been here for a while. Amazingly, because apparently they do suffer from hurricanes that do run through here, and they are, I believe, seismically active as well. So it's kind of a double hit on them, but they do manage and do seem to be pretty happy with the place that they live. They have this wonderful architecture in this town that was really neat to go around and take a look at. After we got our tour of Ribeira Grande, we headed up the mountain even further to a picturesque viewpoint. It is called Fire Lake, and I am truly sorry, I'm not really sure why it's called Fire Lake up here. I'm guessing it's that way because it is partially a volcanic lake, or it does in some way relate to the volcano that does exist up here. So that's my guess, but I don't know for sure. I'm terribly sorry. The view though is absolutely stunning up here. It was really nice to come visit this area. The view was spectacular down to the ocean and down to the town below. After our tour up there, we headed back to this pineapple plantation where they have been growing pineapples here, various different types of pineapples, for over 100 years. They grow them in these greenhouses, and they grow a lot of them. This is just one of the many greenhouses that they have up here. They have this watering system that works pretty well, apparently. They've been doing this for a really long time, and it seems to work out pretty well for them. They've got a system down that allows them to continually grow pineapples. And then after our tour, we ended up heading back down to the ship. Once we got back down to the ship, it was time for us to head out for our 4-day crossing all the way over to Bermuda. Those 4 days were basically filled with us relaxing, maybe getting a little exercise in, hitting the buffet a little bit, but we really generally did kind of just hang out a lot of the time. We'd end up going and spending some time in the Grand Plaza, where we got to see the performing bartenders. We saw acoustic performances back in Eden, and we also got to attend a performance of Caterina Rosa. And if you ever get a chance to see her perform on the violin, it is absolutely worth your time to go see that performance. Since we weren't allowed to actually record Caterina Rosa, I ended up using the music from Crystal Eyes to kind of give you an idea of what her performance is really like. But it is absolutely spectacular. We ended up spending plenty of time out on deck. And like I said, we also did hit up the buffet a couple of times while we were at sea here and got to see the performing bartenders in the Grand Plaza. After 4 days at sea, we did finally arrive in Bermuda, and unfortunately we arrived 1 day before they were supposed to get hit with a Category 3 hurricane that was coming up from the south. So we're going to walk through and we're going to show you some of the area here around the town, but a lot of the tours that you would normally be able to do were not really running, especially anything that was out on the water, as they were trying to get a lot of the boats out of the water, and I'll show you some of that in a little bit here. But here are some of the things you normally would be able to do in Bermuda. Obviously ice cream and food are at the top of the list. The town is actually easy to walk through. There are a ton of ways to get around. You can do taxis, you can do buses, you can do the really fun transportation out here on the jet skis. If you get a chance there, you can rent a moped and go around if you're comfortable riding on mopeds here. And then they do have these tours that do normally run, but unfortunately you can see here. This is a Welcome to Bermuda Visitor Center, and you can get a transportation pass there that'll get you around the island for the day. And this was the machine they were using to get all of the boats out of the water there. They were in the process of just getting as many boats out off the pier as they could, and all this dock space here is just empty where it normally would not necessarily be that way. So after we skedaddled from Bermuda before the hurricane showed up, we ended up spending 2 more days at sea, which was a little bit windy, obviously, because we had a hurricane coming in behind us, but we made the most of it with a seafood buffet. And then on the final day, they had this just chocolate overload buffet as well that we could go visit. It was Halloween that day, and for Halloween we got to celebrate with dinner in the dining room where they did lobster that evening. So we definitely went ahead and grabbed some lobster as well. They weren't necessarily the biggest lobsters, but they were fine to eat. After dinner, we headed off to the final performance of the cruise, which was a comedian, Fred Klett. He was a very funny comedian. He was a great way to end our cruise on a really fun note before we ended up getting one final sunset off of the deck before returning back to Port Canaveral and ending our vacation. Thank you for watching this video. We really appreciate it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.